Hey guys, I'm here at Biohacking Congress in Miami with Victor Sagalovsky of Litewater. This is an amazing event that has over 30 experts in the field of biohacking. There's over 30 vendors here, lots of great information coming out. If you missed this one, check out the next one. It's going to be in Austin in February 2023. And we're going to be diving into deuterium depleted water. Okay, and I know for like 99.9% of you, you've never even heard the word deuterium ever. That's how I felt when I heard Victor speak at the last one that I saw you speak at. I'm like, what is deuterium? So let's start there.
It's funny you say 99% of the people don't know about it, because 99.8% of our bodies are water. Most people don't know that either, because they think we taught in school that it's 75%. But if you look at molecular weight, we're 99.8% water. But a little bit of that water is not H2O, and that's deuterium. Deuterium is an isotope of hydrogen. So hydrogen is the simplest element in the universe. It's number one in the periodic table. And then in 1931, they discovered that hydrogen is just not one. There's two isotopes. And we're talking about the second isotope, which is known as deuterium. Okay. And the difference is that a simple proton and a simple electron make up the abundant form of hydrogen, which is 99.85% of the universe. Okay, and the reason why our bodies use it and why it's the fuel for everything, for stars, for rocket ships, for us, is because it's so simple. It's a proton and an electron. It gets through everything, right? And deuterium adds a neutron, so it doubles the mass. But oxygen doesn't realize that it's different than protium, so it still combines with it to form water. But in this case, it's not H2O, it's HDO, or D2O. But D2O, that's called heavy water. There's not much of it, so we don't really concern ourselves with it too much. But we concern ourselves with HDO, where instead of that H on the H2O, you have that D, which is twice the weight. So in a half liter of water, which is 10,000 drops, you have 3 drops that are HDO. And this has a chronic effect on our biology, which is very negative.
Okay, I want you to talk about, because I'm always like, to me, the best biohacking is mimicking how nature is intended at its best. At its best, right? So, what has happened over the course of nature? Like, why is this an issue? You know, why isn't nature just providing us with this?
I'll tell you how it was discovered.
Yeah.
They were trying to figure out. Well, soon after, in the early 30s, they discovered this second isotope of hydrogen. So the Americans decided, well, we're going to see what this D2O is. So they made a bunch of it, because you have to make it in the lab. It looks like water, tastes like water, feels like water, and they drank it. On the 5th day, you die. Wow. Okay, so they said, this isn't water. Yeah. So they said deuterium's bad. Yeah. Okay, and the Russians looked at it the other way, and they said, well, how much deuterium is in all the water out there? And some places have less, because they were trying to figure out, there were 2 populations, they were trying to figure out why they lived so long. Yeah. They had extreme longevity, and they were super healthy, and they were in Siberia, which is essentially like living like Eskimos. And they honed in on, they tried to figure out why, there were a couple of biophysicists and gerontologists trying to make a name for themselves and prove this discovery, like, why are these people living so long? Right. And then they realized that deuterium is not the same all over the planet. In some places is less. So where these people were living was 16% less deuterium in the water, and that has to do with the hydrological cycle. So in certain places on the planet, and mostly it's the same, like the ocean is 155.76 around the world, okay? Oh, okay. And then in certain places, and 2% of our water is fresh water that we can drink on the planet. It's not very much when you consider we're a water planet, but only less than 2% of what we can drink. And in like 10% of that 2% or less, there's areas that have less deuterium in the water, because they're high in the mountains, the hydrological cycle is localized, it doesn't come from the ocean, or it's very high latitude, so it's intensified. So in some places you get like a 10 to 20% reduction in deuterium. And so that's when they correlated that. They said, look, it must be that the people that live in places that have less deuterium, that's why they live longer. And they looked at this, and they said, sure enough, this is the reason. And they published on this, and they did studies on mice and mammals and plants, and said, when you reduce deuterium, everything grows faster, better, healthier. So it's a burden. It's heavy, right? If you take a regular hydrogen, you take a deuterium, this one's heavier. Okay. Yeah. And this interferes in our biology, because in our biology, where there's a spot for a hydrogen, if a deuterium comes in there, it starts distorting that shape that you need in the DNA, in enzymes, and in the mitochondria. It does a special kind of damage. because we have these little motors, these nanoscopic motors in our mitochondria. Each mitochondria is 320,000 about of these motors, and they spin at 9,000 RPM, cranking away nonstop. If you look at it, it looks just like a little motor generator, like we would make, and it's shuttling protons, causing this thing to spin, and then it generates ATP, which is the energy currency of our biology. So what happens is every 5 seconds, a deuteron gets into that motor, which is twice the weight. So it causes that motor to stutter and jam, basically. It creates torque and shear, and that weakens the membrane. And eventually a membrane gets leaky. And when we have leaky membranes, it's all over.
Yeah.
Call it in, shut it down, right?
Right.
Yeah, so this is what's happening at the microscopic level, right? At the molecular level and even at the atomic level, like I said, with the difference in weight. And this changes the kinetics of how our biology operates. It slows things down. So as we get older, we slow down. Why? Because of this deuterium problem. It's a primary cause of aging.
Was there ever a time on the planet that they know of that there was just less deuterium?
Absolutely. We believe that what happened in the last 12 to 26,000 years, the deuterium level went up by 15 to 20% on the planet. And one of those reasons is when you had the ice age and all those glaciers melted, they released a great amount of methane into the atmosphere. And methane is full of hydrogen, so there's more chance of deuterium. So that's one thing that happened. And if you look further back in time, you could look to Antarctica, which has the lowest deuterium level on the planet, which is 89 ppm. Quite significant when you consider that here in Miami it's like 150 ppm, the drinking water. So that is water locked in time from millions of years ago.
Right.
So yes, the deuterium level on this planet has been creeping up. And what the deuteronomics, which is a new science, a new branch of biochemistry, which endeavors to explain how deuterium is managed by the body, that informs us that the ideal deuterium level in the body is about 20% less than we have now. So it's in the 120 ppm range. If you want to optimize and really tune in your biology, you drop the deuterium level by 20%.
Okay, so how do people, besides, we'll get into Litewater and your science behind this deuterium depleted water, how else can people drop the deuterium level in their body?
They can go keto and they could eat less.
So how does that work?
So
with
keto, first of all, if you're burning a ketone body versus glucose, you're going to get roughly a little bit more than 3 times the ATP. So it's much more efficient energy production to run from fat than glucose. Not that you don't need glucose, we do, but the primary bulk of your energy supply should come from fat because it's just easier, right? You just get more mileage, you get more mileage on your vehicle, right? So then you have
So you're saying it just increases the mitochondrial efficiency, which helps get rid of deuterium, or is there some other connection?
The other connection is that when you burn fat, okay, like 2.2 or a little over 2.2 pounds of fat in your body that you burn, you produce metabolic water. And our metabolic water, the water that's inside our cells, is already deuterium depleted. Because the body's trying really hard to keep this stuff away from those motors, okay, and away from everything. But eventually it gets overrun very quickly, from birth to death. So when we fast, or when we're eating keto, we're not burning carbs, we're burning fat, and that fat has less deuterium in it. So that's nature's strategy. Nature's strategy is to deplete the fats and load the carbs. And if you look at a plant, it's very simple. It's all based on gravity. It keeps the heavier down, and what's lighter is up top, right? Because it's all about conservation of energy and path of least resistance. So you can see that you can observe nature and go, okay, I get this, because it really, when you start understanding this, you see how deuterium fits in all life cycles in nature. And just before, we weren't conscious of this. We're 9 years away from even celebrating 100 years of knowing that hydrogen had more than one form. So this is all very new to us. But to ancient people, they lived in areas people that lived in areas that had less deuterium, had better health.
So with the metabolic water, and you're saying when you lose body fat, you create this metabolic water,
Yes.
which is like deuterium depleted water
Yes.
endogenously.
Yes.
So could that all, even if they weren't keto, but if they're losing body fat, would it have the same effect?
It would, but just not as well. You wouldn't go down to the 120 ppm range. You could get into the 130s, which is fantastic. Fasting.
Yeah. So you're saying being in a ketogenic state, losing body fat, increasing your mitochondrial efficiency,
and eating fat, because fat's going to be lower. If you're like a good
versus
like a good animal fat would be in 120 ppm range. Okay, and and carbohydrates would be like above 150. So that's huge, right?
Yeah.
That delta's huge, because this is something that happens over time.
Yeah.
You think about 10 years, 20 years, 30 years of your life, and how much energy is wasted on repair.
Yeah.
And then incorrect repair.
Right. Yeah, so it's like this is a new interesting field of another benefit that we get from increasing mitochondrial efficiency, losing excess body fat.
Absolutely.
Yes,
absolutely.
it's something that maybe hadn't been considered before in that whole talk, because obviously that's going to increase longevity if you're not having these, what'd you call them, like little kinks in your motors.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it causes the motor to stutter.
Yeah.
And imagine something spinning really, really fast. All of a sudden it goes and every 5 seconds. So it weakens everything around it, including the motor itself.
Yeah.
And eventually it just says, I'm done. You know, it breaks the motors.
Yeah, so you've been on this journey for a while, right? And because Litewater's only been around for the last few years, but there was like a mountain of work that came before that. Can you talk about the journey you've been on with that?
Sure. Well, I read my first article about this in, I think, 2004. And it made sense to me, because I'm like an armchair gerontologist. So I'm looking for, like, what is the cause of aging? Like, well, I don't, while we're here, why not try to figure it out? Right? At least make some headway for the next generation, perhaps.
Yeah.
But I was always enamored with these stories when I was a kid of all these immortals, living to hundreds of years and looking young. I'm like, is that real or is that not?
Right.
And I figure if it's in our consciousness, if somebody had the creativity to even imagine it, then there must be some validity to it.
Yeah.
Right.
Which, by the way, I'm going to interrupt you really quick and just say, like, I moderated a panel. We're talking about reversing biological age, and I kind of went home, was doing my own thing, and I was like, whatever Victor's doing is freaking working, because you said you just turned 50 this year, and I was like, I mean, he's like, whatever he's doing is working. And I know a bunch of people said that when you spoke yesterday too, like your skin is glowing, like you do look a bit ageless, like you don't look older than like 20-something-year-old per se, except you can kind of tell, but your skin is vibrant. When you walk in, it's vitality, like you're just like alive,
the lightness of being is a benefit of deuterium depletion.
So it's I just had to say that, like it's
definitely
works. What you're doing, whatever you're doing, it's like obviously working.
It's DDW. I mean, I'm not doing much else. I know the right supplements to take. I know the right food to eat. I know nutrition really well. I know diet. But all of that, they don't move the needle like this. Because this is the only thing that will give you a net energy benefit at the end of the day. Everything else has a net. Everything else gives you immediate energy.
Right.
But ultimately, it's a little bit.
It's money in the bank. You're putting money in the bank. So, okay, so 2004, you probably, I think a sense of calling or purpose, something hit you with this.
Something hit me.
And then what happened?
And then I started researching how to make it.
Cool.
And I failed miserably until I went to Russia.
Wow.
And we saw how it was really done.
Wow.
Because it's so difficult to remove. You're not removing a contaminant from water per se, or like fluoride or a mineral or something. You're removing water from water. Because like both times I've seen you speak now, somebody will be like, "Will this machine work? Will my hydrogen machine work?" Did.
Well,
I wish it did.
You wish it did. So so what happened? What has to happen for this process to happen?
Well, it's you basically have to mimic or you have to duplicate. You have to be creative in duplicating the hydrological cycle.
Oh, okay. So you can't do that at home.
You can if you've got maybe 20 feet of clearance, or we need 50 feet because it's gravity. You have to. Wow. We exploit a phase change difference. So if you have H2O and HDO, they'll have a slightly different point of phase change from freezing and to steam, right? So when the water changes, when it changes its phase, right? And we use the steam side, and they were trying to figure out how to do the freezing part, and so was I. So because if you have deuterium in the water, either D2O or H2O, that's going to have a slightly higher freezing point. So in the beginning, it was thought that you can put some water in your freezer, and that top layer that forms first, you can pull that off.
Interesting.
And that's going to have more deuterium. And that's in fact true. However, if you do it 20 times, you'll get maybe 1 ppm.
Oh.
So it doesn't work.
Okay.
And that's what I was trying to do at first.
This is so awesome. Like the passion. I love it.
Right? I was trying to skim that off the top.
You must have this holy grail.
And I'm like, well, I must be blessed with. I came here as a 7-year-old child from the Soviet Union, so I grew up speaking Russian.
Wow.
So I'm like, I'm failing at this, and nobody can help me because nobody knows the science here in the U.S. I figured, well, I speak the language, even though I've never been there. And as an adult, I went to Russia and I found the scientists that were doing this.
Wow.
And it was just so perfect because they had just spent the last 15 years building this factory.
Wow.
Okay, my partner there now, he was obsessed as I was.
That's
with
awesome.
this because he got a copy of that book in the early 60s when he was a kid.
Wow.
Those Russian Siberian studies, and he said, this is it.
Wow.
So when he made a bunch of money, he just threw most of it into this factory.
Wow.
And when I found them, they were about to close down because they didn't know how to market or get. Or they just had faith that this has to change the world because we understand what deuterium does, and it's such an easy intervention. But to make it is so difficult. So they spent an incredible amount of money, incredible amount of time, and they finally got to the point where they were commercially producing, and that's when I showed up.
Wow.
With my partner Robert. And we were like, wow, this is fantastic.
Which, by the way, can you share who Robert is?
Robert Slovak, yes, many of you may know him. He's a
legend.
He's a legend in this field. First, he's a legend for him and his brother starting with reverse osmosis. Okay, that was in the late 60s, early 70s. And then he's legendary for being the first to popularize and import ketone marine plasma into this country, which is a big win. Then he created the hydrogen tablet, which everybody I think here uses and loves and understands the benefit of hydrogen. So he was really early in the development of a lot of these pivotal things and things that we call biohacks now.
Yeah.
Where before that term didn't exist, but certainly the movement did to optimize your health, and I think everybody called biohacking yoga back then.
Right. and so now it's like obviously Robert's been on the cutting edge of like movement and water.
And Robert's got Robert has a great quote. He said, in 40 years of being a water scientist in the water industry, and by the way, he's a real he went to school for rocket science, so he started as a rocket scientist. So 40 years of being in the water purification. It didn't occur to him until later when he discovered this himself. That this was so important because what we have here is a new standard of water purification. Not everybody can reach that standard yet, but I hope eventually more people do. There's 4 companies in the world right now that can do this.
Wow.
Okay, because we don't share our notes, so everybody figured out how to do it on their own.
Right.
Okay, we're all friendly, but we all have. We all use a very similar process, but unique to us.
Yeah.
So what we do, we can. Our company is unique in that we can remove the most amount of deuterium from the water. Okay. Not that it's a big deal, but for us, it's like a little something.
Yeah, it is. It matters. It's good to know.
Yeah,
it's good to know. Okay, so you've got this. I think I saw a picture of it. I believe. I mean, it's a huge facility.
It's a huge facility.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're getting ready to build one here in the U.S.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a big thing, and what I tell everybody is that right now, because we can't make a lot of water for that many people, it's expensive. What makes it expensive is, well, not only all the equipment we have to put together, but the power, the electricity. In this case, we use natural gas, or we could use any energy, but it's energy intensive because you're heating, you're cooling, cooling nonstop, 24/7, and you've got 70 of these columns, and they don't produce that much. They kind of a little bit every day, right?
Yeah. Weren't you saying how many drop like?
Well, we produce one giant column will produce less than almost between 15 and 20 liters per day, which is like nothing, right? So you need like You need like massive amounts of these. So I appeal to everybody that there's a scientist out there that will figure out how to make a home unit. You'll put us out of business, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Because it's important. It's like if we were sitting here in 1880 and we were talking about, wow, it would be so nice to not have to use those gas lamps anymore. I wish somebody would invent a light bulb, right?
Right.
But you know it's coming. So it is coming, but a home machine, to make a home machine to remove this, it would be the equivalent of the invention of the light bulb, because it's so difficult. It needs a whole new way of thinking. So it's a whole evolutionary leap for us in technology to be able to do this. So I myself am looking at things, how to do it by mimicking the way, biomimicry, mimicking the way our body does it. So I'm studying the way that our body selects for deuterium, because it does.
Yeah.
So it tries to keep it out of our most important energy producing pathways. And there is a hydrogen exchange that happens. There are certain enzymes that prefer the deuterium. And the reason is because of the kinetics. Because deuterium disassociates 9 times slower from a carbon. So you can exploit the fact there's a slower disassociation, right? If you're in a race, the guy that's got a big lead weight on his foot is going to be last. He's like, come on, catch up! I'm trying.
Yeah.
Right. So we're looking at that.
That's cool. That's cool. So the mission is reduce deuterium, and you're
mission
mission
is reduce deuterium, and mission is to let people know that there's a new standard of water.
Yeah.
New standard of water purity.
Okay, so in terms of light water, obviously this is deuterium depleted water. When you drink this, is it actively helping deuterium come out of your body, or you're just not taking in as much deuterium?
No, it's both.
Okay.
Absolutely, it's both. There's a mechanism known as hydrogen exchange.
Okay.
So the water that you replace that day or today, if it has less deuterium than the water that you have in your body, you're going to release some of that deuterium. Right. About half a ppm to 1 ppm per day. Okay. So and if you're drinking this water, then you're limiting the amount.
You're not taking in as much.
You're drinking water that's closer to the metabolic water in your cells, because none of the water we drink makes it inside our cells, right? Because we don't trust it. We make our own water. Yeah. The body makes it what it needs. It just needs the building blocks. Right. So you're giving it better building blocks. Right. You're giving it less burden, because the body, the body is trying to keep deuterium away from our DNA, all this stuff, but it gets overrun, and so we age, we break down. And that's one of the reasons. It's not the main reason of aging. It could be one. I mean, it's a concert of things, but of all the things I found that affect our aging, this was the one thing I could do something about. Yeah. Yeah. But other things I still haven't figured out how to. I understand what they are, just haven't figured out how to mitigate it. Yeah. Well, I mean, we all have seats at the table, right? There's I'm helping people with training and nutrition and some things like that, and you're helping with deuterium, and the guy over there is helping with salt, and the guy over there is helping with other blood labs or what so there's so many, and this is obviously your calling is serve here, help them understand this. I've always been a water person. My whole life I've been drawn to water. Go to hot springs, map out where the natural water sources are. I just have this pull toward water, and water has a pull toward me. So I went to go live on the islands for a long time, and I'm always in the water. And so water is really important, and we are swimming in it, 99.8%. Yeah. Right. How did you team up with Robert? How did you guys meet? I'm just curious. Robert's a mutual friend. They're mutual friends. Okay. So we're both in the same space. Somebody's like, you guys need to. We looked at it. We actually looked at it for a while, and realized that this was going to be a hard go, because nobody ever heard the word deuterium. Right. Yeah. I feel that with you. One time I was listening to a really old podcast from Ben Greenfield, and I think he was talking about cold immersion, but this was from 2011 or something, doing ice baths or whatever, and I was like, wow, that's such a common thing now, everybody does cold immersion. But in 2011 it was a hard sell a little bit, it was does it really help? Do I really need to do this? I've been doing keto since early 2000s. Yeah. And at first I figured out how to do keto as a primarily a raw foodist or a fruitarian. I figured out how to do keto as a fruitarian. What? Yes. Yes. Yes.
Lots of exercise and fasting?
Fasting,
Yeah.
yes. A lot of avocados, coconuts,
Wow.
a lot of oils,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
Nuts, seeds, ferments,
Wow,
all
yeah.
this stuff.
You've been biohacking for a minute now.
For a minute, yeah.
Yeah, but that's where I feel like, kind of how where Ben Greenfield was with the cold plunging, and over a decade ago. I feel like I kind of sense that with you now. I'm like, good for you pioneering, right? Because I understand you've dedicated your life to this research.
It will hit a critical
deep in
mass.
it, yeah,
It
and
will hit a critical mass.
you're helping people understand. And that's another thing. In your talk yesterday, there were so many questions. I've never seen people like interrupt a presentation before.
They just had to get.
Yeah.
Tell me.
I'm like, I don't think he's taking questions yet. He's still in the middle of his presentation, but they were just dying to know. It's probably because you have this vitality, they felt comfortable with you, But anyway, people were asking like, how much, that's a question. Like, so if I get Litewater, which by the way, where do you guys ship to? Who can get Litewater?
We can ship anywhere in the U.S. or Canada.
U.S. or Canada?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we can ship other places too. It just gets very expensive.
Okay.
It's water.
Okay.
It's heavy.
You really want it, you can go that route.
Yeah.
Or you can come to one of these events because you guys.
You can come to one of these events.
But obviously you can get it. Is it litewater.com or?
It's Drink Litewater.
Drink Litewater,
And it's
that's right.
Litewater.
Yeah, Lite.
Yeah, Drink Litewater.
But yeah, everyone, how much do I need to make a difference? What do you say to somebody?
Gosh, anything will make a difference.
Right.
Yeah, anything will make a difference.
It's like somebody saying, how much should I exercise?
But if you want to approach it in a more scientific fashion, you want to get down to the 120 ppm range.
Yeah.
That's gonna mean either one or two bottles a day. Okay, so half a liter to 1 liter a day. And some people originally there's two protocols. One is to dilute because we have 10 ppm. And you don't need to drink 10 ppm straight.
Okay.
It's unnecessary, especially in the beginning, because whether you drink 10 ppm or 100 ppm, your body's only going to be able to lose a little bit a day.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
It might go a little faster, but not
So
much.
don't waste it.
Don't waste it, right?
Yeah.
Don't waste it. So people dilute. So
Yeah.
they dilute between 1 to 1 and 1
Okay.
to 4, which gives you between 80 and 122 ppm.
Got it.
So that's the way you do it in a clinical fashion.
Got it.
If you're going for a linear depletion, because this is used in different clinical protocols. And if it's just a lifestyle modification, you say, oh, you know what, I'm going to drink half a liter or a liter of it a day. Forget about everything else. Make sure I test myself after 3 months.
Yeah, how
So
do you test?
Saliva. We set up a lab.
Okay.
It was a real pain in the ass.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, so through your website,
Yes, through our website or deuteriumtest.com. Same one.
deuteriumtest.com.
Yeah, so we bought this instrument. It's like 150 grand, and it took
Wow.
a year to get it. Took another
very
year
cool.
to
I
tune
wanna
it.
do it.
And now, well, we can measure saliva.
And then you mail it, and they
Yeah, you
spit
just
in the
mail
tube,
it.
and you mail it back in.
We give you a kit.
Oh,
you spit in
cool.
the tube, and,
Okay.
then we measure it.
And you're
and
saying
let you
test after 3 months?
know. After 3 months, yeah.
Yeah.
Whether if you take that dilution approach,
Yeah.
that's a more linear depletion, which is good if you're dealing with something like some illness. So you won't. So otherwise, our lifestyles are different. So we travel a lot. So you drink one here, one two. It's not balanced. It's not consistent.
Right.
But you still will deplete deuterium.
Okay.
It just won't happen like this.
Okay.
Right. Maybe one
Right.
day it'll be half a ppm. Maybe one day it'll be nothing. Maybe
Yeah.
one day you'll raise a little. One day it'll go. So you can dilute and make that nice linear depletion.
Okay.
Or if you're a disciplined person where every day I do this,
Yeah.
you say, okay, I'm going to drink half a liter or a
Right.
liter a day.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
depending on what other water you drink, at the end of the day, you can do the math in your head and say, okay, well, I drank a liter of DDW, but I drank a liter of something else too. So that's a 1-to-1 ratio at the end of the day. So you know that today you consumed 80 ppm of
Yeah.
liquid.
Yeah, interesting.
And if your body's 150 or anything really
Right.
above that figure,
Right.
you'll
gonna
reduce
help.
a little bit.
Yeah, very cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I know
And
that
if you do this long enough, like I have, what I learned, if you do it long enough, after the first year, your tissues start dumping deuterium. And that's when you get that lightness of being. That's where I get that vitality. Because I cleared out the superficial deuterium, and then it went deeper and it came
Makes
out of the
sense.
tissues. Because we have 1 to 4 grams of this stuff in our body. Doesn't seem like very much at all, like 1 gram.
Right.
But it's more than the basic constituents of life. Glucose, potassium. We talked about glucose. There's almost 5 times more deuterium than glucose in our body.
Wow.
Now it's attached to glucose because
Right.
it's a hydrogen, but when you look at it just by molecular weight, you go, there's a lot of this stuff in our body, and that's how the scientists started looking at it. You have that first wave of scientists that said, hey, this is either good or this is bad, and we did the tests and we said animals live longer and plants grow bigger. But in the early 2000s, they were trying to figure out why this
Right.
deuterium has this problem. So
Right.
Dr. Olgun, who discovered this mitochondrial problem with the nanomotors, I asked him, I said, what made you even interested in looking at this? He said, because I looked at how much deuterium was in the body. I said, there's a lot of this stuff. Is it do anything?
Right. Yeah. Maybe we should look into it a little bit.
We should look into it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we started reviewing all the old literature.
Yeah.
He says, hey, this is really something. This is significant. So he spent 2 years of mathematical modeling on that nanomotor to figure out exactly the kinetics of the difference between that deuteron and the proton coming in.
Wow.
And unfortunately, those motors have a spot for one proton. And a deuteron is like 2, right? It's a neutron
Right.
proton. It's a square peg in a round hole. It just doesn't fit, and it causes that motor to jam. So we can talk about this.
Yeah, I'm assuming if people want to learn more, they can go to drinklitewater.com, and you guys have references for
lots
all
of lots of information. And if you're practitioners or if you're scientists, researchers, very curious, you can go to deuteriumdepletion.org. And there you'll find most of the studies that have been done in the last 60 years in all the languages because we are censored on Wikipedia.
Yeah, I saw that, and it's frustrating, right? It's frustrating.
It's frustrating, but then we're not alone.
Yeah, I'm censored on social media right now.
We're not alone. Yeah.
Yes, you're not alone. Well, thank you so much, Victor. I love hearing the calling, the spark, the passion, the desperation. I'm going to go to Russia so I can get this stuff for me, and then I'm going to help everybody else get it too. And
it was such a blessing because I show up to this country, and I'm an American. I came here when I was 7.
Right.
But at home, I was Russian.
Right.
So I show up at this country I'd never been in.
Yeah.
But I could speak the language.
Yeah, that's gotta be so weird.
It was the weirdest thing. It was just the weirdest thing.
You're like, I'm just a really good.
And I felt like destiny.
Seriously though, seriously, how amazing is that whole story?
Yeah, it's crazy.
So cool. Thank you so much for sharing it with us, guys. Check out drinklitewater.com, and we'll go ahead and wrap it up here.
Thank you.